No bruised up.
Oh, whatever we do that use it now.
Oh, it started. I don't know.
Oh, it has. Hey guys, Club Manager Ryan here. I'm with Head Strength and Conditioning Coach, Mr. Jaber. Jab, how are we today?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good, going well. Suppose what we want to chat today about is the program that we're running here at Champions Gym and what sort of direction that we're heading with strength and conditioning. So I suppose, Jabs, you've got a really good background with strength sports, periodization courses you've done. Tell us a little bit how you've put together this kind of training block that we're in.
Yeah, so kind of this is the training block we currently put. So what the focus mainly is, should we change this chair?
Is it just constantly doing that?
Every time.
That's your one.
Yeah.
Well, you grab that thick one because.
With the wheels?
Yeah. Just got to put the other one towards the Jabs.
Any noise that you guys make just is kind of like strange for the video.
Yeah.
Like even if you're clapping, it's just too much.
Oh, you don't clap.
That's fine, but just don't do it again.
I think I'm running.
That's strike one.
I know, it's so common, like Alex is so.
Yeah, oh my God, Alex. General boxing! How is it?
Yeah, it's fine, but when you're trying to speak, it's
sitting
fine.
alright? Are we upright enough?
Hey?
Yeah, it's alright.
We started.
I'm just making sure you can't see up your shorts, so it's okay.
It's so short.
No, it's all good. Alright, so you don't have to start from the very beginning. We'll just cut this part out. Or we'll leave it in, whatever. Whatever looks good.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, so just talk about what you said last, the programming.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit how you've set this program up and what your goals are for our members here, what you want them to get out of it.
Yeah, so with this program, what I've sort of written, we're still going to focus on the main muscle groups. Obviously, with like your squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press and whatnot, we've reduced the reps a little bit just so everyone can start to go that little bit heavier and focus on getting close to that strength testing. And then obviously the program after that's going to go even less reps, and that would be the one right before the strength testing. So with this one, since we've got about 8 weeks or so from the start and then about 4 weeks towards the end of it until strength testing, so I've sort of tried to focus on a lot of little muscle groups. So for example, like your scapula, your rotator cuff, and a lot of isometrical exercises, sort of like your single leg deadlifts, things like that, single arm presses. That way, a lot of general population, I feel, even athletes as well, have a lot of imbalances. And when we target like this, the unilateral sort of work, so like single arm, single leg stuff, it sort of starts to iron out a lot of those imbalances. And if we can make that, the single muscles a lot stronger, it's going to make the muscles as a whole work a lot better together. And same thing with like working on the little groups like your rotator, scapula and things like that. If we can fix a lot of sort of imbalances and weaknesses in our supporting muscles, obviously you're not going to go a lot, like very heavy with those sort of exercises. You're going to go very lightweight. But just working in those little groups will help strengthen the bigger muscles as a whole. It's going to support you when you do your main lift. And a lot of people I notice, myself included, we sort of just leave those little muscles behind. We sort of just expect it to grow with all the big groups. But just tailoring that into a program, even if it's just like a couple sets every other day or whatnot, it makes a massive difference in the long run.
So obviously, based off that, there's a lot of thought that goes into the programs, and you think about all these features, you get the best out of each person who walks in through the door. I suppose then with your programs that we do the 12-week programs, talk us through a little bit how that works in terms of when someone comes in and they're training, what they're going to go through. You mentioned high reps, low reps. What benefit, what's they going to get out?
So obviously with the higher reps, that sort of gives us a chance to go a little bit lighter for our weights, which is probably going to help more towards like your beginners, not just beginners, but everyone in general, just sort of learn the movement behind it. As we start to drop the reps, that's when we sort of want people to start to go a little bit heavier. And that way they can sort of focus, like obviously in the first couple blocks of the cycle, that's when we really hammer down on the base, on like a lot of the fundamentals, like your bracing through the core and technique-based stuff. And it's similar to like our fighting, like with the Muay Thai and the boxing's technique is everything. So we try and get everyone into a good habit with their techniques, making sure every single rep they do looks the same. And then that way when they start to go a little bit heavier, a little bit less reps, they're already focusing on that. The first 4 weeks will generally be higher rep range so people can focus and work on it. Then it'll slowly drop the next 4 weeks and it'll slowly drop again the next 4 weeks. Obviously, as we start to drop, there won't be as much exercise selection through those cycles more so. That way you can really hone in and just work on the big exercises and and you sort of access your exercises. There might be a little bit more explosive stuff, a little bit less reps again with that, just so you're not overdoing it, because you're obviously going to go heavier and fatigue a lot more when it comes to your heavier rep ranges. Less rep ranges, heavier weights.
So you would say this, from my understanding, is quite similar to how you would program for a one-on-one client, if you will. So that's kind of similar that you approach your classes and coaching.
Yes. So we sort of look at the classes as if it is like just one big group PT session. Obviously, you're going to have the gym, like the environment, the community feel to it, which is going to make it 10 times better. But similar sort of concepts, I do all my programming as such. So I'll always start. Sort of, it depends. Even if you've been training for years, you can still master the basics. You can still keep doing the same things over and over. I always say that people that can do the boring stuff are the ones that are going to go a lot further. Obviously, I can't do the boring that well sometimes. So that's how I sort of program for everyone, whether it's a class or individual. I'll sort of focus on getting a lot of hypertrophy training towards the beginning. Next block or two, I'll sort of start to drop it a little bit. Let them go a little bit heavier. Let them see what they can sort of lift. And just for general population, it all depends on your goal, but we sort of tailor it around the Muay Thai, around the boxing in here. So we want to do a lot of the exercises that's going to help them if they're going to ever enter a fight or anything like that. But yeah, it's all similar sort of training in the end, like how I program. And then after about 12 to 16 weeks, how long it may be, always sort of reset, go back to the basics, re-drive, relearn, and go again after that. Just a constant cycle.
And so you're being coaching your members in the sessions and doing that extra work outside to make these programs to get the best out of them as well.
Exactly. And so and then we try and encourage the members also to come a little bit earlier if they can. Sometimes just do that extra little bit of mobility work, a little bit of warming up beforehand, because that's going to make a massive difference when it comes to the lifting as a whole.
You encouraging them to really get the best out of them. Is that right?
Exactly. And yeah, always go above and beyond. And even sometimes I tell people, don't be afraid to sort of strip back the weights a little bit. If you're not feeling the most comfortable in that session or something, you feel something's not quite right, don't be afraid to just take a couple steps back. That's going to make you take a couple steps forward in the long run. I always tell people when they're training, fitness is sort of like a lifetime sort of thing. You don't want to have to rush it in the first year, even, for example. Think about your long-term goals. You're not racing anyone but yourself, and to be honest, it's not even a race. You just want to be able to continue training your whole life and as long as possible.
Just longevity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, awesome. And I've noticed one thing you do really well is, and what we do at all the clubs is actually getting the members to track their weights. Tell us a little bit more about why you do that and what the benefit is.
Yeah, so I guess tracking your weights, the whole benefit is if you don't know what you're lifting like on a regular basis, you're just going to come in every single time. You're going to be like, oh, I don't know what I lifted last week. You could go, for example, if you lifted like a 50 kilo bench press one week, you come in the next week, waste the whole session just going to 30, 40 kilos because you thought that's what you did last week. Where if you've tracked it, you can sort of do your warm-up sets to build you up towards that 50 or thereabouts as an example. And then you can just sort of minimize or just like sort of the time wasted. And that way you can go straight to as close as possible to that. And then from there you can build on, try and go a little bit heavier, even if you don't want to go heavier, just sort of fix that technique, perfect every single rep as much as you can. Just takes all the nitty-gritty stuff out of it. And that way you can keep building towards whatever goal you've got.
And you find that that's good for the members. So if you have a member that comes in and that way when they come in, you can give them their tracking sheets, pick up whether they've off and see what kind of progress they've made.
Exactly. And the members feel good for it. Members, clients, they all feel good when they know where they're tracking, and then especially if they've set like a goal, you actually have something to work towards. You're not just coming in just lifting for the sake of lifting, and you can actually build towards something, whatever that may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you recommend for people like it? What are the benefits of just getting stronger? I mean, just for everyone.
Honestly, everyday life is strength. Like, it's just the most common example I hear everywhere. Just think about shopping bags. Some bags are going to like weigh a lot. Like imagine carrying like a 5 kilo bag of rice, for example. Like it's all functional in a way. And so even just getting out of bed as you get older, like you're picking up your own body weight. So even like things like push-ups, things like squats, that's all beneficial, especially things like deadlifts. I know a lot of people get scared of deadlifts, but in my opinion, that's probably the most important lift in the whole gym. Even just picking something off the ground is pretty much a deadlift. But you got to look at it in a gym environment. It's a safe environment. You're not just bending over, picking something up. You're setting up properly, you're bracing properly. That just helps your day-to-day life, helps the muscles, helps the bones over time.
Definitely. So, and when people come into your sessions, they're guided from the the start as soon as they walk in, you take them through the warm-ups. Talk us through sessions like today's session. What you do if someone comes in, you take them through what's the purpose of the warm-up?
Yeah, it's cool. So obviously we always have an icebreaker at the start. We just to get everyone comfortable in the session. Once we go through that, I'll always tailor no warm-up is generally the same for me. I'm always going to tailor it towards that session in particular. So say we got like front squats. So I'm going to target a little bit of warm-ups through the groin area. Very specific through the groin area, through the hip area, all around that lower body. I'll do a little bit of shoulder mobility, obviously, because with front squats, you're going to have to get your arms up a little bit higher. We'll go through about a 5-minute or so warm-up. Some people come in early and do their own extra little warm-up. And if they ever need anything else, I'm always happy to spend a little bit of time with certain members to help them get nice and warm for the session. With that warm-up in particular, we're trying to activate the muscles, trying to get all the muscles switched on, rather than just doing stretches for the sake of stretching, which are actually trying to fire up the whole body. Once that's nice and warm, you're going to be able to move a lot freer. Muscles aren't going to be as stiff. You're going to get a lot more range of motion through it. Then we'll obviously go through our main lift to start with. That's always generally has an exercise to go with it. Then we'll go through our next set of exercises, which will complement that main lift. And then you'll have like your accessory exercises. For example, like on an arm day, you could have like your bicep curls, some arms, you could have some calves for accessory exercises. And then we generally try and finish off a little bit of conditioning. You'll have about 5-10 minutes left for that. Just running through could be like a little circuit, could be like a little EMOM, could be a little Tabata session to finish with. It's going to vary day to day, and that way members aren't getting too bored. That's where we generally add our variety through the conditioning. I like to use the first part of the session just to sort of repeat it week to week. That way they get a bit of consistency, and the variety will come towards the end of the session.
And you've this week huge PBs by some of the members.
Yeah, we had
as well.
Yeah, we had Danny pump out 175 kilos for his deadlift, which was pretty solid.
Incredible.
And to be honest, looks like he had a lot of room to move as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see when it comes to strength testing.
Yeah, and tell us testing more about that and why that's important, what we do differently.
Yeah, so the important thing with strength testing, it sort of gives you that guide and sort of you know what you're lifting. So even generally, like, it's always good to sort of do, like, it doesn't have to be a 1-rep test, because obviously the general population, they don't really need to test 1 reps if they're scared of it. So even like 3 reps, and you can sort of just get a rough guide. That way, when you're setting targets for yourself, you sort of know what you can already lift. Because if you come into strength testing and you lift like 150 kilos, for example, for a back squat, and you assume before you could only lift 100, so you're sort of aiming lower than you need to be aiming. And that way, once you figure out what you can actually test and what you can actually lift, you can actually set higher goals for yourself rather than just sort of limiting yourself to whatever you're lifting.
Right, it sounds like an awesome program. Yeah. Nothing I wanted to ask you was, and then for people that are afraid lifting weights are going to make them bulky, what would you say to that?
Honestly, most people probably won't get bulky because we don't eat enough. Like, we think we eat enough, but if you're not eating a very big amount of calories, which most of us think we are, but in reality we're not, you're not going to get bulky. The quickest, or the way you sort of get bulky is by eating a lot more calories than your body is outputting. But honestly, most people will not get bulky just for the sake of getting bulky. Look at me, I'm nowhere near bulky, and I've been training weights for like years and years and years, and I've been going heavy, and I'm not massive or anything like that.
So everyone who's watching you to get worried that you're going to get bulky if you lift weights, it's not going to happen, right?
Definitely not.
But we'll have to feel better and look better.
Exactly. The amount of weights that you're probably lifting here is not heavy enough it's going to make you bulky over time, but it's going to make you a lot leaner, a lot fitter, and just a lot it's going to give you a more functioning body, to be honest, just get you moving better and feeling better.
Yeah, awesome. And then for athletes as well, you're saying it's not going to make them slow, it's actually going to make them more resilient and less likely to be kick harder, move faster.
Exactly, especially the type of strength training we're doing here. Like I said, it is tailored towards Muay Thai and towards boxing and any other fighting sports. So it's not going to actually make you bulkier as such. It's actually going to help the body move a lot more freer, especially with our warm-ups and conditioning. It's actually going to tailor it towards that and add a little bit of extra dynamic towards their training and their prep for their fights.
No, definitely. I know you're a big technique guy as well, so you treat everyone that comes through the door, you really look after their technique. What are some things that you look for, 3 things that you look for in someone's technique and why?
So, first one, especially with the main lifts, I look for a lot of bracing. So that's going to protect, a lot of the bracing comes through like the middle of the spine and the lower back. So that's going to protect you over time, especially if you do plan to go heavier. You want to sort of create that little protective barrier because your spine is probably the most important part. I always like to look at making every rep look the same. There's no real benefit to setting up a certain way, the next set setting up another completely different way, because again, you got to master the basics. You got to get your technique down packed. Make it always look the same. That way, your body gets used to it, and your body can progress from there. If you're chopping and changing every single set that you do, your body's not going to make progress because it's constantly changing everything you do, and just full range of movement. So a lot of people, myself in the past, have done this before. They go heavier than they need to. I'd rather someone go just that little bit lighter, just get through that full range of motion. That way, every muscle that they're planning to use is actually being used.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then this program that you set up, we're running, it's actually 6 days a week as well. So how do you fit all this in 6 days a week?
Yeah. So we sort of try and tailor it, like we don't like to do the same body part like 2 days in a row. For example, like your Mondays will have your back squats, then we'll change it to upper body, which will have like your bench press, for example. Then we'll go back to a little bit more lower body, which will be your deadlifts. But again, that's a bit well-rounded. Then you go back to upper. So we sort of just mix it so everyone's not doing the same body part day in, day out. And then with the conditioning, we'll sort of do the opposite. So if we're doing like upper body, we'll go lower body conditioning. That way they still get that full body workout, but not all heavy weights for that body. And just spread it out as much as we can. And sometimes like even towards the end of the week, we sort of do similar sort of lists, but different in a way. So for example, we got back squats on Monday, but then Fridays will be front squats. Then Saturday, instead of just doing a conventional deadlift, we change it to sumo deadlift, just so they're getting a lot of variety, but it is going to benefit them in the same way.
Yeah, excellent, awesome. And so it's really about getting those long-term changes that we're going to see people perform well in and out of the gym. Hey?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
And like you said, long-term, like it's not just come in for a few weeks and then you're thinking you're going to be all magical and strong and fit and all that. It does take time. And don't be afraid to stagnate through your training. Everyone does it. If you hit like a little wall, just speak. Like we always try and encourage you to speak to your coaches and whatnot. Yeah. That way we can just help you out, just guide you in the right direction. If we need to change anything, we can change something. But everyone at some point in their training is going to hit a little wall. The point is just push through it. If you need to change anything, change a few things and see how you go from there. Don't be so quick to sort of just shut it down and think it's not working.
For sure.
It's always good to have an open discussion and just see what you can change and what you need to change.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you do a lot of coaching off the mats as well. You know a few things about nutrition. Tell us a bit about that and what you recommend to our members.
Yeah, so I find at first when someone new comes to the gym, they're afraid to eat more. You got to think of food as fuel. So you got to eat enough that it's going to benefit your training, especially if you're doing like a back-to-back session. So some members will do like a boxing session and a Muay Thai and then go into strength or vice versa after that. And you want to make sure you're eating enough that your body recovers. That way you're able to sleep good. You want to drink lots of water. Always fuel. Right? Exactly. You want to stay hydrated as much as possible. And again, sleep's important. That I put that under like your nutrition and recovery as well. Sleep, water, eat lots of food. Eat your protein because your body doesn't store protein as it does with the other macros, your carbs and fats. So that's the most important one, I find, protein. Once you get that going, work on your fats, then work on your carbs. And also like your water as well.
Yeah, awesome. And this is something you do when coach calls with people. Obviously, you're too busy coaching in the session to do that when you're fixing the technique and motivating everyone. But you do that and keep them on track.
Exactly.
And then a little bit more of the community here. We've obviously moved a few people into the intermediate classes, the grading. So that's great. People can train a bit more. We had a team go to the Rep Bible Comp as well. They obviously love that. So you're a big powerlifter. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so obviously powerlifting is a little bit different to Olympic lifting. So it's going to be a lot heavier weight. It's going to be a lot slower. It's going to be like your 1 reps and things like that. We actually we had a seminar with the guys from another gym came down and had a chat with us just to teach our members the benefits and the differences with powerlifting. And I think a few of us members, myself hopefully, and a few of the members will be entering like a powerlifting comp if they like. We're gonna go down, give it a try. It's only a novice one, but it's good to just test it, see where we're at, see if the members like it. And again, I know we tailor our training towards like Muay Thai and boxing, but there's no reason why with your strength training here that people can't enter powerlifting comps if they want, if that's their goal.
It's good for the off season.
Exactly, there's no reason why this try, right? Exactly, there's no reason why this training won't benefit it as well, because especially once we go to the third cycle in that block, it's going to go a lot heavier, and a strength test is going to show you where you're at, and that could be someone's goal. Like nothing wrong with that as well. Like powerlifting, different to Olympic lifting, a lot slower, a lot heavier. That's why I try and teach everyone that bracing, even if you are powerlifting or not, that is so important for your lifting.
Yeah, breathing, definitely. And it's a massive community. It's a lot better to do this in a group to, as you say, the guys lifting a lot heavier and getting these awesome results you're seeing.
Yeah.
And then tell us, I know you're a big guy, goal setting and mindset. So you obviously get the guys to track their weight. Why is that important?
So goal setting, like as such, not just setting like you want to be specific with your goals. So like target ranges, or if you have like a fight coming up, set a goal to that fight, but also set little baby steps in that way as well. So you got something to aim towards. If you got something to aim towards, once you start ticking off those little goals, that's gonna make you just feel better as a whole. Like especially with myself, I find that if I'm ticking off things along the way of my training, it just helps me give me a clear direction of where I want to go. I sort of like getting people to set the long-term goal first, whether it's like a year, 3 years, wherever it may be, and then work back towards that, sort of break it down so you know the little baby steps that you need to hit. And even if you don't hit your goals as such, just roll it over to the next month, the month after that, and that way if you fall off the wagon a little bit, you sort of know where to jump back on. There's no reason if you don't hit it that you should just stop altogether. If you don't hit it, just jump back on, try and achieve that, and also just break it down. Don't need to rush towards it. Think long term rather than short term with your goals.
No, good. And I suppose recovery. So a lot of people, if they're new to training, whether it's conditioning, boxing, or more, I think they are going to be quite sore. What are some 3 tips you have for us to recover in that first week when you're just walking through?
So it's definitely sleep. Sleep's the cheapest and the best sort of recovery tool that you can use. Obviously, if you can get some walks in, just keep the body moving. Don't just go on the couch or something and just sit at home and even just chuck a podcast on or something like some music and just go for a walk. Just keep that body moving as much as you can. And also,
so if I came in and did one of your squat sessions and my legs are cooked, it's fine for me to come and do some boxing, for example. That's going to help.
Yeah, exactly. You got to feel sore, but once you get into that session, your body's going to loosen up automatically. Just getting those muscles moving might benefit it more. That way, you can get the body moving, and also make sure you're eating and drinking as much as you can after a session, especially towards the beginning, so your body can like we said, food is fuel. So you want to make sure you replenish anything you lose, especially if you're training, you're going to be sweating a lot more, and then you don't actually realize you need even more water. That's another, again, cheapest and the best recovery tools. Like sleeping, eating, and just constantly moving.
And then you did talk a bit about nutrition. What do you think? I'm a big firm believer in the 80-20 rule for consistency and longevity over time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. For those that don't know what the 80-20 rule is, 80% good, 20% bad. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be bad, but just not as strict as your other days. Just because I feel like even with members in the past or clients, when they go too strict, like 100%, that's when they're going to start getting those cravings and they're going to want to eat something and they're saying no. And once they eventually do eat it, they'll go way overboard and just crack the whole system. So you sort of just want to give yourself a bit of leeway. That way, if you go out with friends as well, you actually go enjoy yourself. You don't want to give up your day-to-day life. Like that's just probably as important as your training, because it's all about, like you said, mindset. Like you want to have a bit, you want to still enjoy life. There's no point going through life and just not.
So I can't have my pizza, is what you're saying.
Yeah, have your pizza, but and again,
in moderation.
If you have your pizza, it doesn't mean the next day keep having more. Have a few slices, enjoy yourself, and then the next day just jump back onto whatever you were doing, whether you're calorie tracking, whether you're just eating mindfully. Don't need to completely jump off. Enjoy that meal and just don't feel guilty for it.
Oh, awesome. And I suppose there's different ways to track progress, to not just well, we have body scans here, but there's also you track your weights, how you feel, how you look, and doing all those sorts of things. So what are some of your feedback on that, I suppose?
Yeah, so there's so many different ways. Like even like you can track progress with, for example, with weights. You can track your progress, just how you're recovering in between sets, just how your body's actually moving, how you're feeling the next day. You can take photos. That's another big one for me. Like not necessarily so much weights on the scale, because obviously with strength training you're going to put on a lot of muscle, so it's not going to look like the scales are shifting as such. So progress photos are a good way to look at it. Just how your clothes are fitting. Just there's so many different tools. You just got to find out what works for you, and don't be afraid to use more than one tool to track your progress.
Awesome, beautiful. And I suppose, what are some benefits for I guess sort of athletes and fighters lifting weights in your opinion? Biggest three.
Yeah, so I'd say muscles. You're not going to get as much injuries just because you're used to like pushing out those weights, and especially if you're like trying to hit someone or or get a bit more movement in the ring, you're not going to put those muscles out of whack, and you're sort of making it functional for your movement patterns.
Them, but just resilience, getting used to the workload.
Exactly.
Your body's already kind of used to that. You're going to be less sore, and then range of motion.
Yeah, exactly. So overall movement through it, overall recovery, even like in between the rounds.
Yeah.
Just so their recovery is going to be a lot better once they're moving through round to round. Once they're getting hit, the body's going to get used to getting that sort of punishment, I guess.
Awesome. I suppose just lastly, we talked about your programs and what you do. You put a lot of thought into it, so you look at different movements, muscles, motor patterns, and things like that. Frontal plane. What are you sort of passionate about this? I suppose
because I guess like everybody, like you're pretty much like your life. Like you want to make sure your body is just functioning to like your whole life. That's why I feel like it's so important to train every little bit, like single leg, single arm stuff, double leg, double arm stuff. It's important to do everything rather than just target one specific thing. And don't be afraid to take time to actually train all those little muscles. Like I said at the beginning, you're not racing against anyone but yourself. You want to make yourself the best sort of athlete you can. Even general population, call yourself an athlete. Like there's no reason to call. We're all human, but we're all humans. Like you want to be able to move and just longevity through your whole life. You don't want to get older and older and just be more sore, more injuries, more this and that. And don't be afraid to sort of do like the prehab sort of stuff. So that's why the single leg and single arm stuff in this program is important, because you want to sort of target those muscles before you get any sort of injuries. You want to make them strong, so in case you do start to get those niggles, you're easily able to iron it out, and you sort of know what sort of imbalances you have. If you've got any sort of like lesser muscles not working, you actually can see that. And that way, over time, you're going to get less and less injuries. Obviously, injuries are inevitable, but the more we can reduce the risk of it, the better.
Yeah, obviously training your bones will get stronger, not just your muscles.
Exactly.
And this is important for anyone really, not just fighters, but everyone.
Just general population.
Can really benefit from that. That's awesome. The last thing I was going to ask you, just with, you're a very, very good coach, with sort of training in a general SAT class, that program you have a back squat, and then you talk about high bar back squats, low bar back squats, and then intermediates and teachings like the squats and the cleans. Tell us a bit more about that thought pattern and those sorts of things.
Yeah, so I guess with general population and the general SAT class, you're going to get all different shapes and sizes. People that probably never lifted in their life, people that have lifted all their life. So you want to sort of tailor that program that everyone can do, and everyone's going to get a benefit out of it. Whether, like, obviously you can tailor it different ways. Obviously, with, like you said, your high bar, low bar, squat, you can tailor it with the amount of weights you're lifting, but all those exercises are going to benefit anyone and everyone. When it comes to intermediate, you're going to have a little bit more technical lifts. So someone that is a bit more proficient with their lifting, they can learn a lot more things. Like you're going to have a lot of your Olympic lifting and things like that, which a lot of general population may struggle at first until they get used to that sort of lifting. And that's why that's just generally left into the intermediate. So you can, once you progress through that general, you can move up and learn new skills. But yeah, general's there just to master those basics. And again, nothing's wrong with our with the general population program. That's the sort of training I do all the time, based around your three main lifts: your back squat, your deadlift, and also your bench press. So they're going to be functional for everyone, everyone.
Yeah, obviously everyone, you get great results off them, and then that doesn't mean to say if you're this advanced athlete, you still go back to the basics, right?
Exactly.
It works.
Yeah, those sort of lifts are the ones you're always going to do. You always, like, strength training can get, like, some people may think it's boring because you're doing a lot of the same stuff, but it's the same thing like with your fighting sports. Like you can't get too good at your jab, you can't get too good at your kicks. You always got to do the same thing over and over. Repetition is the key to training. That's the way your body's going to know what you're doing. It's going to make progress. Progress, like I said, can be seen in lots of different things: your weight, your recovery, your movement, everything.
No, excellent. That's 3 fun facts about yourself. No one knows.
All right, I love a good chicken palm. Like if a pub doesn't do a good chicken palm, I'm not never going back. That's one biggest thing. Love my sports. Like, give me any sport, I'll sit there and watch it. My favourite is neither. Sydney Swans, a real team. And then I just love just lifting weights and just running around.
Yeah, awesome.
Just playing sports myself, actually.
That's what makes me sort of the coach.
Exactly, and I just love chatting with people and just getting to know people and just seeing when like people just seeing people able to move better and just lift better is such a big thing for me.
No, awesome, man. Look, Jabs, would you recommend someone who's on the fence about booking in for one of your classes?
Just give it a crack. Honestly, like it's not like you're gonna love it once you're in here, especially the community vibe to it. Everyone like. A lot of people partner up. A lot of people partner up with people they've never met, and then by the end of the session, they're like best friends. By the end of it, you just feel good after lifting weights. Come, like, give it a crack. That's my best bit of advice. Is don't be scared.
Yeah, it's something you think today.
Exactly.
Right? No, awesome, beautiful. Well, look, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear it. If you drop a comment below. And Jab is very keen to have you in his session.
Yeah, can't wait to see you guys.
Awesome, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
See you later.